pass it along. 2 Samuel 17. Moreover, Ahithophel
I'm
said
glad you
to,
pronounced that.
Yeah, Ahithophel. I've been practicing it all week. Ahithophel said to Absalom, "Let me choose 12,000 men, and I will arise and pursue David tonight. I will come upon him while he is weary and discouraged, and throw him into a panic, and all the people who are with him will flee. I will strike down only the king, and I will bring all the people back to you as a bride comes home to her husband. You seek the life of only one man, and all the people will be at peace." And the advice seemed right in the eyes of Absalom and all of the elders. Then Absalom said, "Call Hushai the Archite also, and let us hear what he has to say." And when Hushai came to Absalom, Absalom said to him, "Thus has Ahithophel," I can never sneak up on that word, "thus has Ahithophel spoken. Shall we do as he says? If not, you speak." Then Hushai said to Absalom, "This time the counsel that Ahithophel has given is not good." Hushai said, "You know that your father and his men are mighty men, and that they are enraged, like a bear robbed of her cubs in the field. Besides, your father is expert in war. He will not spend the night with the people. Behold, even now he has hidden himself in one of the pits or in some other place. And as soon as some of the people fall at the first attack, whoever hears it will say, 'There has been a slaughter among the people who follow Absalom.' Then even the valiant men, whose heart is like the heart of a lion, will utterly melt with fear. For all Israel knows that your father is a mighty man, and that those who are with him are valiant men. But my counsel is that all Israel be gathered to you, from Dan to Beersheba, as the sand by the sea for multitude, and that you go to battle in person. So we shall come upon him in some place where he is to be found, and we shall light upon him as the dew falls on the ground. And of him and all the men with him not one will be left. If he withdraws into a city, then all Israel will bring ropes to that city, and we shall drag it into the valley, until not even a pebble is to be found there." And Absalom and all the men of Israel said, "The counsel of Hushai the Archite is better than the counsel of Ahithophel. For the Lord had ordained to defeat the good counsel of Ahithophel, so that the Lord might bring harm upon Absalom." Then Hushai said to Zadok and Abiathar the priest, "Thus and so did Ahithophel counsel Absalom and the elders of Israel, and thus and so have I counseled. Now therefore send quickly and tell David, do not stay tonight at the fords of the wilderness, but by all means pass over, lest the king and all the people who are with him be swallowed up." Now Jonathan and Ahimaaz were waiting at Engerogel. A female servant was to go and tell them, and they were to go and tell King David, for they were not to be seen entering the city. But a young man saw them and told Absalom. So both of them went away quickly and came to the house of a man at Bahurim, who had a well in his courtyard. And they went down into it, and the woman took this and spread it covering over the well's mouth, and scattering grain on it, and nothing was known of it. When Absalom's servant came to the woman at the house, they said, "Where are Ahimaaz and Jonathan?" And the woman said to them, "They have gone over the brook of water." And when they had sought and could not find them, they returned to Jerusalem. After they had gone, the men came up out of the well and went and told King David. They said to David, "Arise and go quickly over the water, for this and so has Ahithophel counseled against you." Then David arose and all the people who were with him, and they crossed Jordan. By daybreak not one was left who had not crossed the Jordan. When Ahithophel saw that his counsel was not followed, he saddled his donkey and went off home to his own city. He set his house in order and hanged himself. And he died and was buried in the tomb of his father. Then David came to Ammon, and Absalom crossed the Jordan with all the men of Israel. Now Absalom had set Amasa over the army instead of Joab. Amasa was the son of the man named Ithra, the Ishmaelite, who had married Abigail, the daughter of Nahash, sister of Zeruiah, Joab's mother. And Israel was Absalom's encamped in the land of Gilead. When David came to Mahanaim, Shobi and the son of Nahash from Rabbah in the Ammonites, and Michar the son of Amiel from Lodabar, and Barzillai the Gileadite from Rogelim, brought beads, basins, and earthen vessels, wheat, barley, flour, parched grain, beans, and lentils, honey and curds and sheep and cheese from the herd, for David and the people with him to eat. For they said, the people are hungry and weary and thirsty in the wilderness. Okay. Some reminders of who people are in this narrative. Ahithophel is the guy that pretty much betrayed David. When the time came, he was a counselor for David, priest. I think he was a priest, right? I think he was.
I can't remember.
Yeah. And so he's like David's counsel. And then when Absalom, David's son, wanted to usurp David, Ahithophel went with Absalom. There's this guy, Hushai. Yeah, he was the guy that David met. That had the torn clothes and the dirty face. I don't know why I remember that. It's just I guess it's in my head. He was
David sent him back.
He sent him back to Jerusalem basically as a spy to say, hey, report to me and remember that was God had. David had said just before Hushai showed up on the scene, that God help me in all this. If I'm supposed to be destroyed, let me be destroyed, and it'll be your will, basically. And immediately, the next sentence, Hushai shows up on scene, and so he tells him to go to Jerusalem so that the folly of Ahithophel would be seen, would be exposed, and so that's soon what we're going. Well, that's what we see in this chapter here. Towards the end here. So there's that player that's in there. So, okay. Well, anyways. So what's going on here?
So I've slept since I've studied this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with, so when Ahithophel realized they had not taken his advice on that, then he realized that they knew about about the plotting. Not just, oh man, they didn't take my advice, I better just kill myself.
Yeah.
My job's not doing so well.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's the brevity of support for him.
Yeah.
Was there? There wasn't a lot of someone can be off his game every so often. Let's cut him a slack. But it wasn't that at all. It was like. The council at first said, that's a great idea.
And they changed their mind and he died.
And somebody else comes up and says, no, I don't think that's right. I think you should do this. And everyone says, listen, that guy's wrong. Let's follow that. I just find what's the word I'm looking for? It's just flip-flopping of support. And I guess that exposes when you're not really, you have no foundation for your beliefs. You have no foundation of really what's right and what's wrong. You just follow the winds of the time or the crowd or the majority. That's the kind of scenario you get yourself into. That's the kind of life that you live is, who's your great leader now? Oh, it's another day. It must be another great leader or something.
I think part of it has to do with the case that each one of them brought too, because Ahithophel, when his case was basically, that we'll pursue him, he'll get tired, and we'll terrify him and then defeat him in that way.
Right.
But then when Hushai comes and says, that's not who David is.
Yeah.
You guys know who David is. This is a mighty warrior, and the guys that are with him are not just going to give up.
That's right.
There's going to be a battle.
Yeah.
And I think that's why that it may have just been that one of them proposed a better case, than the other one did when they came.
Right. Because if you think about it, it's like, anyone who knows David, knows he cannot be pursued like that.
Right.
I mean, if anyone, Saul and not millions, but hundreds, maybe thousands of people learned that lesson.
Right,
You
exactly.
cannot, chase David. He knows the wilderness, if you will. He knows how to survive. At least it's been proven that. So,
It's sad. Well, I mean, the whole thing with Absalom is sad, but he's talking about killing his dad.
yeah.
That's what this plot with
Absolutely.
Ahithophel would have been about.
Sorry, my Bible went off and decided to change screens on me. All right. What else are we seeing in here?
So not only killing the king, but in this instance, he would be killing his dad.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and that it was the support of David's people that kind of saved him in that case, because one of the reasons they didn't attack him was because they feared that wouldn't demoralize people.
Yeah, it was a coup that wasn't really supported, kind of thing. It was maybe ill-advised, but.
Moving to the next section, I didn't fully understand the deal, like who were Jonathan and, this is not the same Jonathan
No.
that was before. and
Jonathan's dead.
Ahithophel and the hiding.
So, some new characters that showed up that are part of the spies that David had earlier, said, hey, go stay in Jerusalem, be my eyes and ears, basically. Well, I think they're related to Zadok and Abiathar.
Right. Zadok was the one he sent back.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Abiathar was left there. I don't think he went with him. I think he stayed there or something like that. I think that's the guy that he was told to do that. So that's what these people are. They're just more characters for David's support. I'm trying to find it myself here.
So Zadok, because Zadok had taken the ark.
Right, back.
David told him to take the ark back.
Right.
So Zadok and the priest took the ark back, and Hushai is the guy that David said, "You're not going to do me any good here.
Right.
Go back. You can do me better. You can do me a greater service there than you did here."
Right, yeah. Don't hinder me here. Go
Right.
and help me out.
So Hushai tells the priest, "This is the plan. This is what's going to happen." And then the priest tells these other two guys, "Go tell David what's
So
going
there's a
on."
little side story here, how they had to hide from Absalom's troops, if you will,
Okay.
in the well,
I see.
cleverly covered with
Yeah.
with grain.
Actually, there was another person, that maidservant, evidently is the one that heard the story from Zadok, and she told the two guys.
Yeah.
And they were supposed to go tell David.
Right.
Because the two guys were sitting outside of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
They weren't in the city.
So you think they were outside spies, like reporting with the troop movements kind of thing? Or?
Could have been.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Okay.
Or they could run faster than the maidservant could when she heard the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Faster and longer. Yeah. 23 kind of, I get a giggle that because of the sequence of events. I mean, I don't rejoice in someone dying. That's not my point here. It's just you would think that Ahithophel would have, I don't know, been a little bit more grandiose on his leaving. He just he saddled his donkey and off he went. I guess his donkey might have been named Eeyore or something like that. Do you think that it was a good day that Ahithophel died? Do you think?
He wasn't a good counselor from that standpoint.
Yeah.
I mean, he certainly, had impure motives.
Yeah. Certainly, I think it was ultimately bad for Absalom that he died, because
Absalom then dies shortly thereafter.
well, there is that. I was thinking it was like, Ahithophel's goal is to get rid of David. That's his goal.
Mm-hmm.
But Hushai is not. That's not his goal. He's secretly trying to manipulate. So I think actually it's a loss for Absalom for that. And so I think it's a win, if you will, for David's kingdom, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, I just find it just strange, like you were saying earlier, how this one incident, I mean, it's like his whole purpose was to give counsel, and now that they went against his counsel,
Right.
I mean, it's like my purpose in life
Yeah,
is done.
yeah.
And I mean, he goes home. I mean, he doesn't just go home and kill himself.
No.
Said he saddles his donkey, rose, went to his home, to the city, set his house in order.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
And then basically hung himself.
right. Yeah. And I don't think that house in order means that he picked up the laundry and
No.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He settled the debts. And,
Right. Yeah.
all of that stuff that had to be prearranged, make sure his wife and children were taken care of, and all of that. So, well. There's also a phrase in here kind of early on that kind of, kind of like spotlighted. It was way back in verse 4. And it says, when Ahithophel made his counsel there, in verse 4, and the advice seemed right in the eyes of Absalom and all the elders. It's kind of early on what I was meaning by this, the ebb and flow of when you really don't have a foundation to stand on, to know what is right and what is wrong. You hear someone with maybe smooth speech and go, that's probably right.
Oh, yeah.
And without really like critically, thinking it through here. And maybe it's a little bit of groupthink, one says it, no one's going to argue, right? Because early on in the previous chapter, remember, everyone liked Ahithophel's counsel.
Right.
And that's what it said, it was really being built up here. Verse 23 of chapter 16 in the previous chapter. Now in those days, the counsel that Ahithophel gave was as if one consulted the word of God.
Right.
Okay? So was all the counsel of Ahithophel esteemed both by David and by Absalom.
Yeah.
So I think there's a caution here for us that we need to be, I don't mean negative critical of our pastors, our leaders, our thought leaders or whatever, but we need to, always do a check on them. Is what they're saying right, or are we just a blind party follower, if I can say that? Do we just, because he is the pastor, we just say, we just agree with him. Because he is our Sunday school teacher, we just have to, we don't challenge it. I think there's,
Both in the church and outside the
and
church.
outside the church too.
You get,
Yeah.
people that are charismatic or
Yeah.
clever with words, they get a big
Yeah.
following, but they may not really have any real root
Right.
or foundation
Right.
on what really matters.
Right.
You see it all the time. You see a lot of damage get done too,
Yeah, absolutely.
both in the church and in the
Yeah.
business place.
Is
People running with what they think is right.
right, and that's why it's good to be constantly rooted in God's word.
Right.
Because if you can always ask yourself, is that what they're saying? Is that lining up with God's word? Is that
Right.
is that where my foundation is?
Yeah.
And it's like a builder that just totally ignores his plans, the construction plans, and does what seems right in his own eyes.
Right.
I've scanned those plans. It's close enough. Let's start building.
Right.
That kind of thing.
It's the difference between making a decision based on what is right and making a decision based on what is wise.
Yeah.
Sometimes things may be right, but it may not be the wise thing to do. So the other interesting thing here is, if how do you think Ahithophel felt in verse 23 right?
You talking about of 17?
Of 16.
Of 16, the previous,
Right.
yeah.
16.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all built up. I
He
would
was
think.
all built up. I
Yeah.
mean, he just, you
I'm
know.
the man. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden here, he gets his legs cut out from under him.
Yeah.
In the beginning of 17.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's riding high, and then all of a sudden, you know,
He's riding a
you know,
donkey.
yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, they moved on to a new,
exactly.
fair haired advisor.
Yeah. Yeah. So what caution is it for us? What is this caution here for us? Is there a caution?
Don't think more highly of yourself than you ought.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
You
Don't
know,
plot to murder people.
Yes, don't plot to murder people. Also another great advice.
Things don't go good for you when people turn on you after
Yeah,
that.
yeah. If they're easy to kill other people, yeah, they could kill yourself. Yeah.
It kind of makes me wonder, you know, since like he's plotting to, you know, essentially overthrow their state.
Mm-hmm.
Is it really a suicide? You know, it's like the Israelite mafia, and you know, knocks him off, like hanged himself.
Yeah.
well, you also need to think about what was he thinking if this plan, you know, because the only way that he was going to stay alive was to kill David,
Right,
right? Because he was a traitor.
right,
So if David ever got back in power, he was done with.
right.
And if he saw what was happening here and said, you know, I'm a dead man anyway.
Right, right.
You know, so rather than suffer the consequences of having my head cut off by David, you know, I'll just take matters into my own hands.
This is the way things work. When
Yeah.
you're in a coup mentality.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
It's basically, you see it like in the
Yeah.
countries that have overthrown governments. and-
Right. A very unstable, environment. Right. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna stop here. 17. We'll